Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tenarium Tryinmorning Talk Visual Novels. We're up to episode number 11 now, and this one, once again, I'm doing with Chris Tenarium. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing? I mean, this is called Tryinmorning and Tenarium Talk VNs. It would be rather awkward if I was left out.
I was gonna do that without you, but, you know, I kind of figured someone might call me out on that. But no, this time,
just happened to be around and you felt obliged to carry me around.
Yeah, this time we're doing it ourselves. We don't have any other special guests this time. But we have picked out a number of games. 2 of them are actually commercial games. 3 of them are free to play. And we're going to be talking about them today. Some of them we quite enjoyed, some of them not so much.
No, I enjoyed every single one. I don't know what you're talking about.
Almost as much as John Cena, too.
Yeah. I forgot to tell you, man.
Wonderful
I'm
experience.
Positive now. I'm positive.
Nothing but positivity.
I've noticed in recent weeks since we've been doing this podcast that if I'm positive about a game, more people like it. So as opposed to being honest, I'm just going to be positive about every game.
That's how it works. That's how the
Which
YouTube machine works.
Be quiet through at least 2 of these. Just fucking dead silent.
Well, of course, but before we get to that amount of positivity, we have even more positivity by first getting ourselves to, as we've now named it, I see the drama section. Isn't that right?
Not the drama section, you skipped past a section. We have to evilly endear ourselves to the audience. It says
You
in
know
our
how much I
notes.
hate endearing myself to people. This is the worst. You can do the positivity, and I'm just going to do the part where I loathe endearing myself like a, I don't know, like a cheap
Okay,
suit.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell everyone what you've been up to, and then I'll tell everyone what I've been up to, because it's been a while.
All right, fair enough, fair enough.
This is our first podcast we've done since I went to Italy, isn't it?
Is it?
So,
I thought we did the
obviously-
last one after you came back. Not to
Right, it has
contradict
been
you
as
right
long as
now.
I thought. Yeah, in that case, I've probably done nothing. I've turned 22, so I'm no longer ickle.
Was it
I'm now
as
just
thrilling as you thought it would be,
mild.
turning 22?
It is. It turns out that there is a big difference between being 21 and 22. By one number, actually.
You could just feel your maturity rising.
Nope.
No?
No,
shocked.
I hate to tell you this, man, but it's exactly the same. It's like when people turn from 17 to 18, it's like, I'm completely different, and then you just sort of find out that buying alcohol, you could probably do that beforehand. At least in my area, anyway. But, yeah, so I haven't done much, unfortunately, since the last podcast. I thought we hadn't done one since Italy, but turns out we had. And Patrick, you, since the last podcast, you've grown your hair out, grown a beard, bought a bear, tamed a lion,
I've
shot a lion.
rode across the United States, yes. All that. I shot a lion, yes. That's exactly what we need, all the controversy for this episode.
Yeah, no. You didn't shoot a lion. You rode across America. And some will point that that's very difficult.
I'd probably get less controversy if you said I killed 5 people.
Yeah, you also killed 5 people because you bought a truck and felt it was out of instinct.
That's how it works.
We still are doing controversy, right? Because that's what I was going for. This is you, so what do I care? It's controversy with you.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, let's move on to the drama section, shall we? Drama. That's the new intro song for the drama section.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to pay for one to be done. That's sufficient.
Exactly, we don't need jingles. We can just do really shit ones we make up on the spot. Drama. Alienworks have started working on another game. Alienworks are the people behind Human Reignition Project. This isn't so much drama because the only place I could actually find about it, which it did cause drama in, is 4chan, and that's not a good scale of how much drama something's caused.
Not exactly saying a lot.
Yeah, they really like drama.
4chan was outraged by something today. Oh. Well.
Yeah. Yeah, bird flies past window, didn't tweet. World in anger and racism. But yeah, no, so I made a few tongue-in-cheek tweets, and a writer then tweeted me back for them and was just like, yo, do you want to speak about it? And then we did for about an hour and a half. And yeah, it turns out it's fine. Because basically, imagine if they're working from like 10 to 5 in Human Reignition Project and then they just chill for the rest of the day. Well, some of that time is now being converted into making this new game, which is something Blossoms, Heirloom Blossoms, something like that. So, essentially, nothing is being lost. But I feel bad because this is the drama section, and that's not really drama, is it?
Yeah, basically just dispel the drama.
Yeah. I feel like I'm not doing my job. Alright, okay. Backtrack. HRP today announced that they're working on 7 different games, all of which is going to eat straight into the Human Reignition Project. But no, we spoke to the writer, and yeah, everything's fine. He seemed fine, and nepotism requires me to say that he's fine. So, yeah, that's how that works. Someone says in the chat, I thought 4chan was the paragon of tranquility. Some members are on there, I'm sure.
There's some people, but then there's a lot that do want to drum up the drama and troll posts. Exactly.
Yeah, or like every time the words hi Tao and hi JP are brought up, it's like, it's like a meme. Right, next piece of drama. Actual juicy drama.
Ooh.
Sekai Project and Wing Cloud split up. They are split up. They're like basically a married couple going through a bit of a bad divorce at the moment.
Seems that way.
So they released something on their Patreon earlier on. And I have confirmed that this is actually true through an inside source who works with Sekai and has access to this Patreon page. No, he doesn't fund it. Or she. And it says, when asked what they're going to do now they're not with Sekai, he said, we will just release them without Sekai. From my personal feeling, most of the people at Sekai just disagree with our ecchi/hentai games. Ironically, this statement has fucking spelling mistakes in it, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yeah.
At first I was like, well, maybe this isn't legitimate, but I'm like, oh, but then the games themselves, well...
Yeah, so it says we were, as opposed to we were. We were just feeling very awkward working with a company where a lot of people straight out dislike our games. Which, I mean, there's a lot difference between disagreeing and outright dislike, but whatever. It's really regrettable that they prefer, I presume they mean, more serious stories, not stories, and many of them just don't like our games. Right. So, for those that don't know, more drama here. Sekai Project, over the weekend, released a game called Yojo Simulator. The game is a complete fucking joke. I cannot believe that they released such a turgid pile of shit. Just suddenly, right? There's a game-breaking bug in the fucking trailer. I think it's like 24 seconds in. You hit something and then you go flying into the sky. Apparently, no one noticed that. No one noticed that. I was speaking to someone who works at Sekai, and he basically said, I'm not sure I really want to be associated with a publisher who's making that. And it got so bad that Jim Sterling even fucking looked at it and went, wow, this is a pile of shit. It's one of those games which I sincerely hope just doesn't sell. They get it out of their systems and we never see anything like it again. It's like, what, this third grader with pigtails and you go around headbutting naked men and boxes, and the description is a complete fucking joke, right? As well, it's just like, oh, there are no goals in this game. You must find your way like you do in life. You can't be philosophical with a game which looks as shit.
Yeah, that's really the place where you need that.
Yeah, exactly. Complete bollocks, right? But if Sekai are willing to shill that sort of terrible, terrible meme game out, which is just a pile of shit, I doubt they're going to be going, oh, well, actually, we don't like ecchi games. And more to the point, you and I, Patrick, personally know someone who kickstarted an ecchi game through fucking Sekai.
Indeed.
It's like, there's no way. Okay, so we know nothing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. We don't know how much of that is actually true. But on the basis of what we know, it's complete bollocks. There is no way that is true.
Yeah, I don't really get it myself. It seems rather odd considering, you know, Sekai has released games like this in the past. Aren't they also with, they also published Toko as well, and that's...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's another... not very good ecchi game, which they released as well. I mean, I don't know where this guy's got it, but then I looked on his Patreon page and suddenly I was sort of like, more understanding, because he's getting $12,000 a month. Cloud, just through Patreon alone. Add the few thousand sales they get per every game they do now. I think Sakura Clicker got fucking something ridiculous like 800,000 the last time I checked a few weeks ago. It's mental. I don't know why he had to go out firing shots. He could just go, oh well, I don't think that this worked out anymore. We could have gone this way. Obviously, this might not be true. There is a very, very small understanding that for some reason Sekai hated ecchi games, yet still,
despite the fact that it made the money.
Yeah, and still take them on and publish them. And you had Yojo Simulator, which they're perfectly fine with publishing, even though it's terrible because it might sell quite a lot if it gets on like the front page, because people are like, oh lol, so random. But I just so highly doubt any of that is true. Yeah,
and on top of all this, I just have to say, as an aside, I can't stand the fact that it seems a number of these development studios continue to release statements through their Patreon. If you have like a major statement you're gonna make regarding this, you can't make it public, really? Just silly.
Yeah, apparently not. It's something which is becoming frustratingly more common, but I mean, WinCloud don't have much of an online presence. They didn't until like their second or third game. And then they created a Twitter account, and someone I saw, I follow on Twitter, said, oh, good, finally, they want to have an online presence. And I was just like, that's going to stop being updated like anytime soon. That is there so you don't forget who they are. I looked on their Twitter page today. Do you want to know when the last post was?
When was it?
30th of May. They don't care. They don't care.
Well, you can't get money through Twitter. That's the thing.
Yeah, oh, well, we've created this to show our fans and interact with our fans. No, you haven't. Shut up.
Why give people updates for free when they can pay you, $1 or $2 a month to do it? Or $5 for
at least
even more
$5
updates.
a month, and then, see it through Patreon. The whole situation's a bit of a farce, if we're completely honest, just because Sekai will accept anything as long as it sells copies, from what I can tell. Right? They want to make money. Whatever. I don't see why the WinCloud guy has to go out firing shots here when he could just say, well, we sort of decided that we don't really want to do that anymore. They're taking a cut. We don't like them taking a cut. We want money. We like money. Let's just go and do it on our own way. Ba-ba.
What I found even more surprising about this all is that it seems that WinCloud was able to pull out their, to take the games under their own publishing studio retroactively. Like, the games that had already been released, the first Sakura Spirit game was originally published by Sekai, and now it shows as WinCloud. So that makes me wonder about, what they had in terms of a contract.
I'm sort of surprised, but, again, insider information, I heard that contracts aren't something liberally flung around.
Yeah, that's the thing I was wondering about.
Change per developer. But the few I know, contracts aren't a thing which is sort of flung around. It's all done verbally, which in some countries counts. I know in England, a verbal contract counts. I'm not sure about America.
It does count, but you'd have to prove it.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever. But basically, he got all of the games, which I found a bit odd. But I must ask, who is still buying the Sakura series?
I don't know. People that watch the YouTube videos think it's so zany and says, oh, I gotta own that.
I know, but sure, the first one, right? Whatever. Then the second one came out, and the third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, and there's, I think, he announced like one more to come out at some point as well, and probably has a whole different bunch in like the, to run up. It wouldn't surprise me if there's one, for example, like themed around Christmas or something. Like, Sakura Santa. You can totally see that fucking happening, can't you?
Well, do you think now that they don't have Sekai as a publisher, you think they're going to go full out with like nudity in some of their games now, or do you think they're just going to keep up the softcore aspect of it?
I doubt they're going to go full nudity because Steam doesn't allow it. Steam allowed one game on there and it was accidental, and as far as I'm aware, it's taken out. So I doubt they're going to go full nudity. I just imagine they're going to stick to what they're good at until they can no longer make a living off it anymore, and then probably move on to bigger, harder stuff. I mean, you saw the people who made the game about shagging your cousin. They make insane amounts on Twitter, and that's a game in which you can rape your sleeping cousin. People pay for that kind of shit. You will always get someone who pays for this kind of stuff. I don't know who they are, but someone is, apparently.
Yeah, a number of people, apparently.
So yeah, the Sekai and WinCloud split up, and I cannot see it being Sekai's fault. Like, I doubt they wanted this. Honestly. But whatever. Next bit of news. Last bit of drama. Actually, there probably was more drama, but since it's been so long since the last episode, some of it's probably outdated. As I said before the show, if you want to see all drama, go to vnsnow.com. He's a better journalist than we are. Well, I call this the drama section as opposed to the news section for a reason. AJ Tilley! I'm going to just do this every time we do the podcast from now on. Just to remind you, bit of a cunt. Bit of a cunt. Don't stop fucking kickstarting his games. Stop it. Like, he has so many which are pending. And I've seen a whole bunch of discussion about, oh, well, he has this game and he hasn't completed them yet, but he has actually released these games before. It doesn't matter because they were shit. Sword of Asumi was shit. Beach Bounce was so bad that it made the Sakura games look so good in comparison. I went and played a Sakura game right after I played Beach Bounce Episode 2. Yes, I have played that in my own personal time, and God, it was a slog. I played a Sakura game straight after that. The Sakura game looked good in comparison. Oh, God, Beach Bounce is so bad. Why is no one addressing that bit? Everything he's released has just been utter shite. Like, Sword of Asumi was bad. Beach Bounce, without a single doubt, is probably the worst for sort of that. It's still a toss-up between Fading Hearts and Beach Bounce, but it's without a doubt, if not the worst visual novel, it's definitely joint top worst visual novel, English visual novel I've played. It's so bad. Like, it's drama for drama's sake. And okay, so I've heard the criticism going around is like, oh, well, don't self-insert yourself into a character. You can do that. What they're really saying is, don't make yourself really, really awesome and everyone wants to have sex with you because you are amazing and threesomes and yeah, look at you, you're fucking partying hard and you're a monster and you get all the girls because you're the sexiest man in town. That's what they mean by don't fucking self-insert yourself into a character, because that will invariably end up happening. And that's what happens in that game so hard. It's just like a male power fantasy. The girl comes up to you after hate. A proper tsundere. Again, the thing which is wrong with stereotypes and right, it's fine to have a stereotype, but having someone who is only a stereotype, like literally just someone who's defined like tsundere, for example, in that game, I can't remember what her name was, like Rai or Ray or something, in Beach Bounce, she hates you. And then you speak to her and it's just like, and then she comes to your room, it's just like, oh God, I actually love you. How do you know it's not lust? Oh, well, I am so turned on right now, but it might be lust. Well, go and think about it a little bit. I am a paragon of truth and believing, so you never know. And it's, oh, what the fuck is wrong? And I'm just trying to find a line that I saw there as well. Because, God, it was like the shy girl as well. She randomly comes into your room, even if you don't go down her path. And is like, yeah, well, I want all of the sex. Hang on. Beach Bounce, Beach Bounce, Beach Bounce, Beach Bounce. I've decided not to hate you for not... oh, no, this is Ray. This is Ray. She comes back into your room after you reject her and go, oh, well, it's all about lust. Oh, great. And she goes, I've decided not to hate you for returning my feelings, smiley face. I'm glad to hear that. Really, smiley face. That's a conversation that really happens. But yeah, I think that's enough ranting about that. Just stop by it. Stop kickstarting AJ Tilley. He'll get the picture if no one funds it. Oh, but my niche and fantasy and fetish is being done by him in this cross-dressing. It's going to be shit. It's going to be shit. Just don't do it. Right, and that's our episodically AJ Tilley rant over.
Yeah. So before we even got into covering the games, we've already covered one bad game.
Look, I said the positivity starts once the games start being covered. There is no way that anyone can possibly be happy or positive about an AJ Tilley game. It's just not going to happen.
It's not physically possible. If you try to force it, you're going to hurt yourself in the process.
Yeah. Should we move on to the games that we played?
Indeed, it seems like it's probably about time to do that. And so I believe I'm going to be covering the first one.
You are indeed. It's your color on the title.
All right, then. So the first game that we played, and the first one I have on the list, is Over the Hills and Far Away. It's a game that was developed by Wargirl Games, and it's a game that starts off in a rather unique setting that I haven't really seen used in other visual novels, at least none that I can recall. It's set during the War of 1812, which, for those of you who aren't history buffs, took place around 1812.
Oh, come on.
To be specific.
Oh, come on. Who doesn't know what happened in 1812?
There may be AJ Tilley fans still around at this point, just covering all the bases.
Right, yeah, sorry. Who doesn't know what happened in 1812 in America? Obviously, in, like, Netherlands, this wasn't happening.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, so you take the role of Aubrey, who is a soldier who's fighting for the British, and he's on the run because he was just in a battle, and he got shot, so he's injured. And he's trying to also abandon, because he's gotten sick of the war. And so he finds himself in a cabin, or I think it might be a barn, rather.
A barn, yeah.
Where he enters in there trying to hide out and, rest, recuperate if he can from the wound. And when he gets in there, he notices that there's a young girl in there. And it's a young Native American girl who doesn't seem to speak at first, or at least she doesn't understand English. He kind of tries to talk to her for a bit. At first, when he sees her, he gets surprised, so he like sticks his gun at her, and he's like, "Oh, get back!" Tries to scare her off. She doesn't run off. So then he settles in because he has his injury, and he doesn't really feel like arguing. So he just lets it go, and the girl hangs around with him. Eventually, she does come to speak later on, and you find out that she does know English, and they begin to talk for a while, discuss their backgrounds, and it's a really nice little story. I mean, it's not, like, overly long. I think it was only about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And so it's really just a story about this soldier who's grown sick of the war, he's trying to run away, and this young girl who, as you find out, she had to leave her village after it was taken over. I'm trying to remember if it was the Americans or the British. I think it was the Americans forced her out. And then she was holed up at a prison camp for a while, until she eventually...
Remember, man, it's always the Americans who are evil. History has always said that the English were a paragon of goodness.
They never did anything wrong in their entire empire or colonialism or any of that.
I used to believe it. Nope, never happened. We were happy and peaceful to every country that we peacefully took over at the time.
Mm-hmm. So it's a nice little story, actually. I mean, I'm not going to get too much into everything that happens because, like I said, it is rather short. This is also a kinetic novel, by the way, which I didn't point out in the beginning. So there aren't really any choices. You're just going to see everything there is to the story in about 2 hours or 2.5 hours, and that's it. But it's really well done. It's well executed. There's a lot I like about this game, from the story and the way that's handled to the music is very well done. I think it's fully orchestrated. It's actually very nice.
Yeah, I actually bothered keeping the music on for once. Normally, I just fucking pause it immediately. I'm like, I can't be asked. Like, whatever, I'll just have something which ruins the atmosphere slightly. But I kept the music on throughout.
Yeah, and also they have sound effects for a lot of things, like when people are walking, and in one place they're like in a muddy area, so you could hear like the mud. I thought that was a really nice touch. When in the forest, you could hear the birds and the wind blowing. Yeah,
I'll be honest. Those sort of things should be staples in visual novels.
They should be more common.
Believe that. Yeah, exactly. That's something which should be being done as opposed to something which should be complimented for being done. I can't believe that this isn't a thing. Like, AJ Tilley with his, text across the screen which says sound of doorbell opening as door opens. It's like, you really couldn't just do a sound effect for that one? Like, they're free online, you know this, right?
Yeah, but the story, like I mentioned, it's the soldier Aubrey who is on the run. You found out a little bit about his backstory as the game goes along too, about how he was also serving in during the Revolutionary War, or whatever it is you Brits may call it on your end. And you find out about how he had this one partner who served with him, and after the war, they stayed in America, and they kind of did some not-so-good things together. And it's kind of what happens next when he finds the girl, Mai, I think her name was, and he tries to get her reunited with her family and her village. It's kind of almost like making up for the misdeeds he's done in the past. And I don't want to get too much into the story, because like I said, it's kinetic, I don't want to give too much away, and I do kind of want people to try this out on their own because I thought it was rather good, and I want other people to give it a shot, so I'm not going to get too much into it. Chris, if you want to say anything about it, feel free.
Right, so first of all, I can count on one hand how many kinetic novels I like.
Is it even one finger?
I could count them on one finger as well. I could count them on no fingers. That's how many kinetic novels I liked. I just think it's a kind of complete waste of the visual novel format where you're just going to tell it like a book anyway. Like, just fucking write a book if you want to do a kinetic novel. But I really like this one.
I was shocked when I heard it.
It's the first kinetic novel I've ever liked. Patrick warned me about it before I started playing it and went, by the way, lol, it's a kinetic novel. You might just want to try and bear that in mind. I'd forgotten within like 10 minutes. I just remembered at the end, I was like, oh yeah, shit, I didn't get any choices. I was just sort of too absorbed in the story. I really liked it. A good sort of note for me that a game's good is when I just stop writing notes for it. I stop writing what's happening to remind myself of it when I'm speaking about it later on during the podcast. I stop like a quarter of the way through the game. My notes just end. It's really good. It did used to be $13 for a 2.5 hour kinetic novel. At that price, genuinely, it'd be difficult to recommend just because the price per hour is a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
That sort of way. But now it's $9, and for what is essentially 2.5 hours of a very good story, art, and so on, I could wholeheartedly fucking recommend it. I really like it.
Yeah, it's nice seeing a visual novel do something different, or a kinetic novel even. And this is pretty far different from most of the ones we've played so far with the setting and how the story isn't kind of all like the other ones where it's boy, girl, that nonsense.
Yeah, that's another point. Yeah, it didn't focus on a love story at all. It's just a story. I'm not sure if I've ever made this abundantly clear, but I think a game suffers when you try and make it just pure, boy v girl. I genuinely do think it suffers. Because you're no longer making about the story, you're sort of wanting the romance to happen, as the writer this is, but this happened, and it's just really good. Go out and buy it. It's good. I mean, we can talk about it, but we'd have to put the spoiler alert up on the screen.
Yeah, I did add a spoiler alert, which I'm just going to flash across the screen now, even though it's not really necessary, just to show off that we do have that in case we do talk about anything that's spoilery, to warn people next time. But yeah, what did I want to say about this one?
I'm not even going to reveal the ending. It's just really good. I mean, the first quarter, there are a few things which annoyed me, and honestly, I just forgot after a quarter of the game, and I was just playing it. It was good. I'm not sure why you're not playing it right now. It's good.
Yeah, it's very good. They didn't have padding in this one, which was a good thing, because a lot of games they would try to make it a bit longer, maybe to make it seem like it's more worth the money, but thankfully they didn't do it in this one, and it really paid off, because I'd rather have a game, just be paced perfectly at 2.5 hours than 5.
They made all of the content worthwhile shock horror. They didn't pad it out just to sort of get some extra time. No, they actually just wrote a decent story from beginning to finish. It's really good. I can't recommend it enough.
Mm-hmm. This one definitely gets our seal of approval.
Yeah. Do we have a seal of approval?
Maybe we should. I'll do that for the next one. Next episode we'll have a graphic for that.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put a seal of approval on it. I do really want to talk more about this game, but it's so difficult because, as I said, it's only 2.5 hours long and it's kinetic. And if I do, you're just not going to go and play it.
Yeah, to give away a lot of the story.
So, yeah, exactly. But it's good, and you should play it right now. Right, so shall we move on to the next game?
Sure, moving on.
That we discussed. Moving on to the next game, we played... I played SC2VN.
Yes, this is one I kind of skipped out on because I'm not really too big onto the StarCraft competitive scene. So I played a little bit of this, maybe 15 minutes or so, and then I'm like, I don't really have much interest in this, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll do a short review for people who just want a very short review, and then the YouTube video, once they've heard this very short review, they can just skip past the actual, like, longish review. So, are you into esports, or do you know anything about esports? If the answer to that question is no, this is probably not going to do a lot for you. And they do explain some of the terms, but they don't explain all of the terms used in the game. Like, many, because I did the whole Let's Play of this game. There are a fair few times where I was just like, this isn't in the glossary, you know, what this word's defined as. But it should be, because you're not going to know it unless you've done something with regards to esports. And, yeah, that's all I can say, really, to people who are sort of, like, not interested in esports. It's not worth playing unless you have an interest in esports. Also, it ends quite abruptly as well. You want to be on, like, an esports, and what you're saying throughout most of the beginning of the game is, oh yeah, well, I really want to get into VSL, which is like this massive tournament. I really want to get into ESL and win and show that I can do it, and then the game just ends once you're on a team. It's like, oh, really? Just like that? Yeah.
So it's kind of like a sports movie, but without getting to, like, the World Cup or whatever the big thing is, basically.
Yeah, and it's also very difficult to sort of get hyped about the esports scene, because I think of it this way. In a world with magic, right, it's pretty understandable what everything is. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't really have to get hyped for that. However, this game, again, sort of works off the thing that you are going to get hyped for, oh, well, I'm in the the ESL studios. It's called, like, VSL in this. But, I'm in the ESL studios, and I'm playing a game, and I'm tapping away, and everything is incredible. It's just like, there is what? People who aren't into esports are just going to have no idea what you mean. And even if they do, they're just not going to be as hyped for it. And yeah, it sort of ends abruptly as well. Then there's this very odd bonus scene after you end, and it's basically top 3 backers get into the game, and they get, like, this thinly veiled developer commentary. It's not a very good. I wish they'd just done a developer commentary, because they made all these, like, silly jokes through it, but the game isn't that jokey. It's a bit serious, so it feels somewhat out of it with the game, and makes little to no sense. Like, it could have just been summed up in 10 minutes, but it went on for, like, 25 because they had to fit all these silly jokes in, and they, like, hinted at a sequel. I still couldn't tell whether that was a joke or not, even after, like, 3 times of reading it. It's, yeah, I'd find it, considering they took 2 years to replace. That's another thing. They took 2 years, and it's short. It's like, probably, I mean, hang on. How many parts did I get to Versity 2 VN, right? And that'll probably tell you how long it is, because it's my playtime. Okay, so 17 parts. So 17 by 15 and add a bit. So that long. So, off the top of my head, like, not long. Like, 3 hours, probably? And this is a game which took them 2 years to develop. I cannot think that they were working on this the whole time. Unless they, like, went down a completely different route, scrapped it, and then started again. That's the only way I can think this took 2 years. It's really short. It's a shame. I did want to like this just because I sort of follow the StarCraft 2 scene. But, it's just short, and the ending's sort of abrupt. Just when you think you're sort of, like, getting into it, it just ends. I tell you what, Pokemon. Everyone's watched Pokemon, right?
Of course, naturally.
Imagine Ash catches his second Pokemon and it just ends there. All this thing about, I want to become a Grandmaster and get all of the badges. Spoiler alert, he never even does that. But I mean, come on, fuck it. It's like 20 years old by now. You should surely know that. But it's like that, but yeah, it's like as if he just stopped after his, like, second Pokemon, because the first one he was given to him. And what was the second Pokemon he caught? Like, Caterpie, I think.
I guess so.
It was either Caterpie or a Metapod, I can't remember. But it was like just stopping once he caught a Metapod. It's just like, yeah, I'm a Pokemon trainer, and they just stopped there. Yeah, it was deceptively short. That said, I would play another game by them, but as this one was a little too niche, Yes, Michelle says in the chat, my main problem with S2VN, it was too short and didn't deliver as promised. I don't know about delivering as promised, but I'd play another one by them, but too short. Didn't really sort of live. I mean, you're never going to live up to the hype once you play that long, though, I guess.
Well, obviously, I can't really say much about the story at all since I didn't really play through it. I will say I did think they did a good job with the art and the backgrounds. It looked nice in the game. That's about all I can really say for it.
Yeah. Yeah, the art was good. Sorry, that's something I need, because I focus so much on the story. Sometimes I just completely fucking forget about the music. The music was alright. Sometimes it was a bit out of place. Like, I think there's this one bit where you're sitting there wondering whether you're going to get into the team, and it's the night before, and everyone's sort of tense, and there's this happy music playing in the background. But I mean, it was alright. That's about as much as I can say about it, really. Positive, sorry. Yeah, it was really good. Positivity.
Ignore everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had to give it like a score or something, it'd be like 5 out of 10. Just like middle of the road. If you know what I mean? It's sort of hard.
Well, how would you rate it if it was based on potential?
Oh, it had so much potential. It had all of the potential. Yeah, the Kickstarter promised a lot of choices. Yeah, it has like no meaningful choices. I meant to go back and see if you can hire a different team member if you piss off one of the team members, but she must just get onto your team anyway. And yeah, the choices are barely there, if we're being honest. So it's very much a kinetic novel in that regard. Like, the choices will get you a few text changes. But I guess you can say after 2 years of development, maybe they just wanted to get it out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it did have a lot of potential. It did have a lot of potential.
At one point, yes, it did.
At one point. I'm still going to... Anyone who comes to my comment section, I have to keep pointing this out, anyone who comes to my comment section and tells me how much potential something had, you're just going to get a sarcastic reply back. Beach Bounce started out with a lot of potential. That doesn't mean it's any fucking good. Like, oh, this game has a lot of potential. So does my game about writing about the love between Internet Firefox, Internet Explorer and Mozilla Firefox. It doesn't mean it might turn into something good, though. It could be complete wank. Like, everything has potential at some point. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Should we move on to our next game? Because there's nothing more you can say. It is a game for that. And that's it. Like, it's a game for esports fans.
Indeed. Moving on to the next game that we had picked out, we had decided to try out Charlatans, which was developed by Klua. And I think this one was released, if it was not for NaNoRenO, then it was released like right afterwards. I don't know if they met the deadline or not, but it was around that time. It was made for
right
NaNoRenO.
Afterwards, because I played everything which met the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that came out for NaNoRenO 2015, which didn't meet the deadline, means that I didn't play it.
So Charlatans is a game which is centered on, well, charlatans. It's people that are claiming to be, what's the word for it? People that can talk to the dead, clairvoyants, I guess. And as the game begins, you're this girl who's going to see them. You ask them about if they're really able to talk to the dead or not. You're pretty skeptical. Your character's name is Karen. She's a girl who, I don't know, she's supposed to be a noble, I guess. It's not really clear as it's going on. Like I mentioned to Chris before we started talking about this, I kind of played a little bit at the beginning of the game, and then I really wasn't sure what was going on, so I stopped and then played it again another day. Because it's not really...
It flits all over the place.
It jumps
basically
around. You're not really sure where the game is heading, especially in the beginning, because you're just like, oh, you're at this tent where they're claiming to speak to the dead. Your character is skeptical, so you talk to one of them, and they're telling you information about yourself, but then you're not really sure how they're getting this information, if they somehow got it from someone else, if they're really talking to the dead. It continues for a bit, and there's just a ton of random stuff that comes into play during the course of this game, and I didn't know where it was heading. Like for one instance, your character mentions, that her father she wasn't sure, but she thought her father had a incestuous crush on her. It kind of gets brought up in one scene, and then afterwards it's not really heard from again. I'm like, what was the point of that? Is it supposed to be about this girl and her father? And then is it supposed to be about these clairvoyants and whether they're really talking to the dead or not? As the game progresses, and I don't think Chris played all this one, did you?
Shh. If you don't say anything, people won't realize that I just played like 15 minutes and gave up on it.
Well, as it goes along, eventually you find out the story about, there was this, I think it was a knight or someone, anyway, they were wearing like a piece of, I don't even remember what it was like chainmail. As you can see, this one didn't leave much of an impression on me. They were wearing like a piece of chainmail or something, they were wearing something, and they went out one night and it got struck by lightning, but they survived. And so these people, these clairvoyants, which I think the ones that we get to know are Sabine and Priam, they're saying something about how, I think it was only Priam, who's the girl, she says that they're trying to test out if someone can wear the armor, get struck by lightning, and survive again. Why are they trying to do this? I had no idea at the time either. So, your character, Karen, just kind of like scoffs at the idea and says, "You're crazy, you want me to wear that and get struck by lightning?" So then she goes out, and she like runs out in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm. And they follow her, and then she pretends to get struck by lightning, but she doesn't, and then she just like laughs at their expense. But then after that, she actually does get struck by lightning. And yeah, she ends up in, I guess, some kind of purgatory, and she sees, it looks like a demon at first. I'm really not sure what it is. I think it's supposed to be Karen, you know, from Greek mythology, you know, the ferryman on the river Styx that takes you to the underworld. And so you have like a conversation with that person. And I guess this is kind of spoilers. Oh well. Maybe I should put up the spoiler tab. Yeah, but I really wasn't sure where this was going.
Tab, damn it.
I'm really not sure where this was all going, so it's hard to tell whether this was like the point of the game or not. So, yeah, you're in the purgatory, I guess, before you get to the underworld. And if you're familiar with like the mythology behind the afterlife in Greek mythology, like I think you had to bring like a piece of silver with you to pay the toll to the ferryman Karen to be taken to the underworld. And so your character had a piece of silver on her when she died, apparently. I think it was like her necklace or something. I don't remember. So she takes the demon, or Karen anyway. Karen notices that she has the silver with her and takes it and is like, well, no one's paid me this in a long time. And since you just happen to remember it, even though I don't think your character actually did remember, it's just a coincidence, I'll let you go back to live. I'll let you live again for free. I mean, just in return for the silver. I'm like, isn't that like counter what it's actually supposed to be? Like the silver's to actually pay the toll to take the ride to the underworld, but I guess Karen was just so pleased that someone actually did this again, even though you think it's kind of silly, but he just decides to let her live again. So she goes back to her normal life. Not her normal life, but she comes back to life, and I think it's at her funeral? I'm not exactly sure if it's supposed to be her funeral, if it was right after she died. It wasn't very clear. But she comes back to life, and the characters around her are like, oh, it actually worked. And they're surprised. They try to find out what happened to her from this, and she doesn't want to tell them. Oh, I also forgot one thing, because it did get brought up again. When she was in this purgatory with Karen, she did mention that before she came back to life, she wanted to talk to her dead father to find out whether he really loved her or not in a sexual way or romantic way or whatever. And so she chooses to do that, but you never actually see the results of what happened with that. So yeah, that kind of leaves off nowhere in regards to whether her father actually loved her romantically or not. It's very vague, and it never gets fully answered. So she comes back to life. The other characters like Priam are trying to figure out, you know, what happened. She wants to know what the other side is actually like. And so she tries to get it out of Karen, but Karen doesn't want to tell her. And when I say Karen, this is the character Karen, not the underworld purgatory Karen, since there are two characters with the same name. I think one of them is actually named, her full name is Karante, but she goes by the name Karen herself. So what happened? Yeah, so Priam is trying to figure out what the hell happened in the afterlife, and she asks her a few times, she doesn't tell. Eventually, Karen returns to her home. Priam follows her there, tries to figure it out again. She doesn't tell her. Eventually, Karen feels bad for some reason. So then she goes back to the tent where the charlatans are set up. And she tries to find Priam to tell her what happened. I don't know why she's had a sudden change of heart, but now she's done. And she can't find Priam. She finds out from Sabine, who... They're brother and sister, by the way. I forgot to mention that, though it's not really too important in the overall scheme of things. Sabine tells her that Priam was gone. She went to town or something, but she hasn't come back yet. Eventually, they go out looking for her, and they find out that she's on top of a building, and she's about to jump off to kill herself to find out what happened. But I think before she jumps off, she gets struck by lightning as well. Again, I'm not too clear on what exactly happened.
Because of course she does.
Because of course. So she ends up in the underworld. She goes through the same thing. Karen feels bad because she's dead. And she realizes that she still has the silver on her in person. So she gives the silver and puts it on Priam's dead body. So then Priam's able to bargain for her life in the afterworld with the silver. But except when Karen offers her, and Karen I mean the ferryman, Karen, when Karen offers to let her live again, instead she decides to jump off into the void that is the afterlife for some reason. Yeah, and it seems like, you know, she's gonna be dead, but then she comes back anyway, and that's pretty much the end of things. I can't really tell you what the point of any of that was, but stuff happened. The game.
Honestly, I was on the edge of my seat just listening to that.
It was a thrilling ride.
That was just, yeah, that was so entertaining.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this game, if you couldn't tell. I also wasn't certain half the time what was going on. Like, why are these characters doing these things? What's the motivation here?
In my very brief playthrough of it, shit just happens. There's no sort of respites or in between scenes or anything like that. It's just, who are you? Oh, I'm so angry. I demand this of you. Come back a few days later. Okay, I don't demand this of you. Oh, she's gotten calm now. Oh, great. Let's do this. Okay, right. Anyway, should we do... Oh, just please stop.
Yeah, like Alyssa says, I'm not sure why we're supposed to care about the characters in any of this, because you don't really get to know them too well at all throughout the game. You just find out, like, random shits happen to them, like with Karen, the main character. She was a noble who had a weird relationship with her father that may or may not have been incestuous, but it was never acted upon, and you don't know. The character Priam and Sabine, they're two charlatans who are pretending to be communicating with the dead, but beyond that, that's all that they really are. So none of it really goes anywhere with the characters. Eventually, you do find out that Karen had this weird thing where she didn't want to be in a relationship with anyone. Like, they say that all the nobles are trying to marry her, but no one wants to really... but she doesn't really want to get to know any of them. So that's kind of a thing, but again, that's not really important to the story at all. So I don't know why that was brought up.
I have no idea. Should we move? Should we just move on?
It was kind of boring. I would agree with you, Michelle. I wasn't really sure what was going on throughout any of that. And, yeah. It wasn't even that long. It was just really weird. And packed full of weird shit.
But did it have potential?
Yes, at one point in development, it had potential that I don't think was fully acted upon. And thus, we had the game as is today.
You reckon, do you?
No.
Oh god, let's move on. It's just a bad game. It's a kinetic novel as well.
Yeah, it was, I think, yeah.
Let's move on. Next game. Kusoge?
I never figured out how to pronounce this. I'll take off the spoilers, by the way.
Kusoge. Right. So, Kusoge is a game by... did I have it written down?
ZO4, I think? And again, I'm not sure if this is another one of those games that actually, if it matters, whether or not we spoil this one, but by all means, go ahead.
Oh, it's like 15 minutes long, isn't it? And the choice... I think there are choices which lead to some ending, but it's... Well, probably as pointless as the other one.
I actually found out there's supposed to be like 24 endings or to this or whatever.
Oh, fuck off.
Why you trying to get them all? I have no idea. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Okay, so... You know there's a sort of new game emerging where not much is happening. It's a parody game, but as opposed to actually parodying stuff, they're just putting stuff there on the game and going, haha, look, we're acknowledging this is a thing. That's not what parodying is.
It's just like a bunch of random references, right?
Yeah.
Almost like a
exactly.
Family Guy episode, but nothing but the references.
Yeah. At least Family Guy has some good jokes to sort of like split up some of the monotony. If I go, this game's potential was over 9,000, I'm not parodying Dragon Ball Z. I'm acknowledging it exists, right? Some of the fucking references in this game. So it starts out, you are, it's well aware. So every girl, you bump into like this girl with toast in her mouth. And I've actually seen that being done in like 2 or 3 different visual novels, completely unironically. That you bump into a girl with toast in her mouth. It's an outrageous sounding cliche. I don't get why it's so popular, but whatever. And you can choose to then just go out with her or whatever because she loves you. At the beginning, you're on the toilet and that references some obscure... I don't watch anime, right? I watched it when I was like 16 and then stopped. I'm 22 now. Just to sort of give you a sort of insight as to how long it's been, right? I watched like most of Naruto and all the big famous ones. None of which were really any good, honestly. Naruto was quite good.
We're going to have fanboys coming out in this episode.
Yeah. For a while, Naruto was alright. But, and then you got like animes like Elfen Lied. Elfen Lied. I watched it in Spanish, didn't I? So I always got Elfen Lied. But Elfen Lied, which is just, I tapped your shoulder and now all of your clothes have fallen off. Wait, what? How the fuck have you managed that? That's not how material works. But yeah, so back to this game. References a lot of anime, never seen it before. And there are a lot of references from stuff I've never heard of as well. But it's like, oh, you bumped into this girl and now she's unconscious. Do you want to do anything? And I was just like, no. And then you get to introduce yourself to the class. And you have a random disease or something, which they never actually say what it is.
Because having random diseases is a thing in some animes, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. And then you meet this girl who's called like Linchu, which means class representative, and you always call her that because Japan. It's set in Japan, because of course it is.
But they're parodying it, man. Don't you get it?
Yeah. Okay, I just have to come out and say it's bad. It's really bad. It's not a parody if you're just putting it in front of the people and going, oh yes, look, we're acknowledging that this is a silly thing, or we're acknowledging that this is a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't really a parody, it was just a bunch of references, like you and I mentioned. It would work if they were trying to do like one thing in particular, but they just go all over the place.
Yeah, as Elise said in the chat, it's just a haphazard mockery of anime and anime tropes. So it's very selective in who it will appeal to. But SC2VN was very selective in who it appealed to, and I still said that was a bad game. Like, it's not a very... if you're appealing to a very specific group of people, that's never going to be good for mass amounts of people. Even less so when it's not even very good for the people who it's supposed to appeal to, for fuck's sake. But yeah, lots of parodying, lots of lol. This is lots of lol random as well. It's been a while, honestly, since I played a visual novel which is comedy in the sense of, ha, lol, random zany. Look how zany and random I am. Ha ha, random zany. Been a while since I played that one like this. This was that. You go to confess to a girl, but end up saying you have you really like eating poo and that's your fetish, and then she comes out and this is the route I got, and then she's like, oh, actually I wanted to confess you to something as well, and it's something weird she does as a fetish as well, and it's like, this is so dumb. It's lol zany random humor with references that, like, I imagine not a lot of people are going to get.
Yeah.
It's... I'm not sure I could recommend this to anyone, even anime addicts.
I don't have a whole lot to say about this one either. I guess what I'll say is the subtitles to this game is very accurate, if you can read it right now.
Okay.
I think
The subtitle, you say?
Yeah. Kusoge, and it says underneath, don't play it, which I agree with. They're right in that respect. It wasn't very interesting to play.
Yeah, I remember what subtitle you mean now, yeah. They literally just say, don't play it. If you have to say
something... They did warn you.
Yeah, also, sorry, now that we're going on about don't play games, something else which I meant to mention in the drama section but forgot to that I need to mention.
Uh-oh.
Don't fucking request reviews. What the fuck is wrong? I've seen stuff on like, oh, I'd like to request to my games, but I don't know about how to go about doing this. Send people games. Send press for your games. Don't sit there and go, oh, well, I want to request reviews. And then go, oh, well, there's very little marketing in it and visibility and coverage for it. Just send the people the games. You have to do something on your end. You can't just hope that everything's going to fall at your fucking doormat.
Yeah, very true. It's not really even that hard to find it. I mean, just Google it, really. You'll find people out there reviewing visual novels.
Just Google visual
find
novel
sites
reviewers,
like VNs now.
Even for a novel. Yeah, even follow complete shit at what they do, and really annoying. That's the point. If you want a positive review game without probably anyone looking at it, just give it to Follow Novel. They seem to like everything thrown at them. I still don't know because they're all bad, but like, they like thing. Just give it to them. VNsnow.com. He'll play any game you throw at him as well. That's why he liked his mic so much. It's, stop requesting visual novel reviews. Throw a game at someone and go, I'd quite like you to play this. That's how marketing works. Right, rant over. Hi, how you doing? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I mean, you kind of broke up a little bit with that in Skype, so hopefully people caught most of that. I think they did. I did anyway.
Good. Right. Would you like to talk about an octave higher? Right,
so moving on from Kusoge, the final game that we have to talk about, and this episode went kind of fast. It's just me.
We've been doing this around an hour so far, man.
Yeah, we had a long... Alright, maybe it wasn't. Anyway, so an octave higher. An octave higher is a game that was developed by Tilley. And, you know, let me just check this out real quick, because I just want to make sure. Because I think when I was checking out before, it's a game on Steam, it's also commercial. It's selling for about $12 right now on Steam. Looks like they just had a sale, but you guys missed out on that, oh well. So an octave higher is a game which is set in... It's kind of like this industrial era society that also has magic involved in it.
Just call it cyberpunk.
Is it cyberpunk? Is that what you'd call it?
It may as well be.
I guess it's cyberpunk, sure.
Anything which is like old school and shit runs off steam and magic, it's cyberpunk. It may as well be.
I guess so. It might actually surprise people. I don't actually read a lot of cyberpunk or play a lot of cyberpunk stuff, so I guess it's a cyberpunk society, as Chris would say. You have kind of like this melting pot of like magic. It's like the industrialization era, so you have lots of machine being brought into play, and it also has involved in it a lot of stuff with like the working class versus the upper class as a theme to the game. And so as the game begins, you play as a character named Frederick. Now the way the game's set up is you have three main characters, and it kind of switches up between their roles at certain points in the game. So the three are Frederick, who is a noble. He's the son of a wealthy businessman. There's Franz, who is a young student who's attending university, and he's supposed to be like one of the brightest of his class. I think he's in his final year. He's about to graduate. He just has to do his senior project or something like that. And the final character is Elise, who is a poor working class girl who is, I think she's supposed to be like 16 or something. She's young, and she's working in a factory. And
she's 15. She's 3 months away from her 16th birthday.
Oh, look at you. Yeah, and she's...
It's because it's crucial to the plot, to be fair. That's the only reason I know.
That is true. Yeah, she's 15, and she's working in a factory, but she resides in a... How would you put this in a refined way? What's the word for it?
I would say a place where people could get in the family way if they don't use condoms.
Yeah, sure, that's exactly the word I was looking for. So yeah, she's working in a whorehouse or a brothel or some kind of classy name for it.
Whoa. I thought that's what we were trying not to say.
Oh, well, then I just went for it, just to be absolutely clear. But yeah, she's living there, and as Chris kind of hinted at, when she turns 16, she's supposed to start working there, but for now, since she's underage, she's working in a factory, because, hey, they have some morals anyway. But as I said, as the game begins, it sets off with this character, Frederick, who is a nobleman. He's participating in a magical sport, which I think they called it sorcerer, or something like that.
Sorker. You'll never guess what it's supposed to be referring to, would you?
I guess so. So he's competing in a duel against some woman who he doesn't really know. Later on, you find out that she's actually like a well-known warrior, or I think she's like a member of the town guard. But he faces off against her. It's kind of implied that she kind of threw the match for him because he's a noble, and they didn't want to upset him. But his father...
Question, do they expand upon that at all when he loses?
Do they expand upon it? All you really see afterwards is he talks to his father, and his father said that you actually lost, but the match was just kind of given to him as a formality because he's a noble. And I think that's what we're supposed to infer from that anyway, that she was holding back during the match.
Right, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah, so his father says something to him about how he didn't really win the match, how he didn't play with enough skill, and he gets annoyed, so he runs off into the night. And he gets so upset he runs off all the way to, like, the working class district, and that's where he comes to, the whorehouse, or, as Tenarium so eloquently put it, which I forgot.
The place to get in the family way, which doesn't, unless you're wearing a condom.
That, exactly. So he arrives, like, right next to the building, and he's, like, staring at it, and then someone says, well, just go in if you want to do it. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that, that's disgusting. He's all appalled by a commoner saying that to him. So eventually someone gives him like a card to the business in case he ever wants to come back, but then he runs off afterwards. But he does see the girl Elise before he leaves, and he says, what's this beautiful angel doing here? And that's what he sees, and that kind of changes perspective, and you see things from Elise's perspective as you find out about her working in the factory and all that I said before. And eventually it changes perspective again, like I mentioned, and you see Franz, who's a university student, and you find out a bit about him. He has a close friend who seems almost like a girlfriend called Aretha, and you find out from her that he's supposed to be teaching one of the classes, I think? I don't remember how it was. I don't think he was supposed to teach the class, but the professor kind of bailed out and left him in charge to teach the class. I don't know, did you remember what that was?
Something like that. I don't quite remember.
Yeah. And this is the part where I kind of like I'll issue my complaint against one of the things the game does a little bit too much. The game has a magical system, right? Magic is something which I'm sure most people are familiar with, but the game does it in a different way. It kind of makes a formula out of magic, where magic is something that you have to combine with like an emotion, like you combine it with courage, and then you amplify the courage, and then that creates, I don't know, fire or something. I don't remember what the formulas were. But he goes over in a very, very detailed way, like the magical system of the game, and it kind of gets a bit too much, I'd say.
Okay, I'll say it because you apparently don't want to. It's so boring. Oh my god. There's a scene in the beginning. Fucking hell. You have to, as Patrick just said, teach the class. And you start explaining all how this works, and before you even do it, you think in your mind, God, this is really boring. I'd hate having to do this myself. And then the students sort of yawn and aren't interested. And it's just like, why are you trying to fit exposition in a game and then make it sound really boring and it's completely unnecessary? Why? Why am I still here?
Yeah, the game gets a bit too into its own description of the magic system, and it gets bogged down. It happens a few times during the game itself as well. I feel like there's the first lesson where he kind of goes over the basics, and it seems like they deal with it enough there, but then it gets brought up again, I think at least twice, and I was like, ugh. I kind of get how the magic works, and plus, you don't really have to do anything with the magic. Like, the way they were describing it, I thought maybe eventually you'd have to combine the magic yourself to use it, like in a fight, but you never do. So I'm not sure why they had to get so descriptive with how it works and how you have to use the different aspects to make a spell. It seemed kind of over the top.
Yeah, it was silly. Like, why bother explaining, oh yes, we have a really complex magical system. Great, am I going to use it? Nope. Why do I have to learn it? What? Why is there a 10-minute scene where you teach me how everything works then? Because I don't care. It's magic. I'm well aware how magic works. It's magic. That's the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's stuff I felt they could have cut out, and it would have made the game a lot quicker. Some other stuff could have been cut out as well, with like a lot of things the characters think in their head sometimes. They kind of think to themselves about what they're doing before they do it. I think you messaged me about it. You said something about when you were first playing it, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so some things are kind of drawn out a bit too much. But in regards to the story, I kind of enjoyed that a bit. A lot of the story deals with, like I mentioned early on, it deals with the struggle between the working class and the upper class and the nobles, and mostly the business that Frederick's father owns, which I forget the name. It's called Magical something, Magical Machinery or something like that. It's like MM something. Like that.
Yeah, they constantly shut it down to MM.
Yeah, MM. That's what it goes by, the business. And so, like, what the struggle going on in the game is the working class, obviously they're the poor. MM is kind of industrializing everything, and they're using machines to replace the workforce, which is leaving a lot of people out of work. And so that's built up some resentment among the working class. So there's this movement that started called, what was it called? Libertad, which is sort of like this underground resistance. And I won't get too far into this because I guess it does get into some spoilers with the story. But eventually some of the characters begin to meet one another. I guess I'll just cover the basics. At one point, Frederick is attending a conference at the university that Franz goes to. And then Franz gives a presentation about a special kind of magic called compassion magic, and how he wants to use it on inanimate objects, which up until this point has been shown to be impossible. So, for whatever reason, I think it's only because Frederick had fallen asleep at this point in the game, and he like wakes up during the middle of this this presentation, and he's like, you know, I really don't want to be here anymore. What I'm just going to do is I'm just going to go talk to this guy, and then I'm going to leave. So he talks to Frederick. Frederick talks to Franz, even though he doesn't really care very much about what he has to say, but he just does it to give himself an out. And so he finds out about Franz's plan with like using compassion magic to do stuff with inanimate objects, which I don't know, they want to do for some reason because they think it'll be really cool and it'll help revolutionize the health industry and stuff like that. And so Franz keeps like asking for like backer funding, but Frederick doesn't really care, so he doesn't give it to him. And eventually Franz just keeps inquiring, so he annoys Frederick, and Frederick almost snaps, but then he smiles to himself, and he hands Franz the card to the whorehouse, which I kind of enjoyed that. That was kind of a bit funny, because it kind of played with perspective to play a joke on Franz.
Yeah, can I just say, throughout the beginning of the game, they do perspective really well, like switching perspectives, because the first time they do it, they don't tell you you're going to do it. So I was sort of confused. I was like, hang on a minute, who am I as now? And then they switch back, and it's only later on they make it more obvious when something's just switched. But in the beginning, randomly fucking switches. Didn't know who I was half the time. Like especially when it was sort of like going back and forth very quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, that causes Franz to then go to the whorehouse to try to find out, because he thinks it's an actual place that's interested in his research, but then he quickly finds out that it's not. And along the way back, he stumbles upon the girl, and then he sees her interacting with a a piano near the factory that she works at. And then, for whatever reason, she tries to use magic to fix the piano because it's broken. And even though compassion magic doesn't work on the piano, or it's not supposed to because it's an inanimate object, both of them almost think for a second that they hear the piano playing. And then so that gives, Franz a big, a light bulb goes off in his head, and he's like, wait, this girl's integral to my plans. And so the next day, I think he's presenting his plan to Frederick's father about how he wants to try to get some more funding to do this project, and how he saw this girl. And then when he mentions the girl, that gets Frederick's attention because he hears about this silver-haired girl from the slums, and he realizes it's the same girl that he saw. So then that's kind of what brings them all together. Like I said, the game, it's pretty long, so I'm not going to get into the whole description. I've already said enough already, I think. I think it was about 6 hours long, so it's a long one. There's multiple endings to this as well, and the endings also have different lengths to them. So depending on what ending you get, you may not see everything there is to this game. I'll say that much. So the themes of this game are mostly, like I mentioned, it's about like these three people getting together from different backgrounds and trying to work together to do the impossible. And what happens from that is, like I said, I don't really want to spoil things because that'd be giving away too much as to what happens midway through the game going to the second act. But I didn't really mind this one too much. I liked it quite a bit. Aside from all the bits where they draw things out, and I feel like they could have cut back on some of the exposition, I really liked what they did with the story. I liked the setting a lot. Even though, yeah, I guess maybe the first few times they do the scene changes, or the perspective changes, I really like that aspect of the game where you see things from different perspectives, and how that works into how the characters interact with one another. And I don't know, like I really like that. Like the scene I mentioned before where Franz and Frederick are interacting, and then you don't really know, or Franz isn't really supposed to know what's going on, but you can tell from Frederick's perspective exactly what he's thinking and what he's going to do to Franz to play that whole that joke on him. So I enjoyed that element of the game, and I thought it was quite interesting. It's a long game, and I thought they wrap everything up together rather well at the end. Like I said, I would be aware if I were you guys that if you do play this one, there is like a false ending to this game, and then if you do a certain route, there is like a longer story that wraps up everything. Because at first I thought there was a bunch of stuff that wouldn't be addressed, but it does get addressed eventually. It's just you have to do the whole true route, which is like another 2 or 3 hours in addition to the main route. But,
can you get the true route on your first playthrough, or do you have to go back and do it?
You can do it the first time through. You just have to make
okay.
the right choices. Or actually, it's interesting. It seems like you make the wrong choices, like some things, and I don't want to get too much into that because that spoils things. Never mind.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm complete opposite. I got bored. I got bored after about an hour and a half. There were so many things which were drawn out. It was so exposition heavy as well. They'd just sit around and have like pointless conversations. I was so bored, especially after that school scene. It's like 10 minutes, and the first thing I say is, God, this is boring. God, the students are finding this boring. Why are you telling me it then? What?
Yeah, while playing the game, I could definitely, like, and this happens occasionally when I'm playing other games, where I'm like, oh, this is the part where Chris is probably going to get bored at and turn it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did see some of that during the game. Yeah, go on.
It's the old writer's adage that I think I heard first off Yahtzee, that are you writing about the most important and exciting part of their life? And if not, why aren't you writing about that instead? I felt myself reminding myself that so much throughout the like hour and a half I did. Like, why is he telling me about the school bit? We could have just skipped over this. They could have just been, oh God, this guy forced me into a... They could have just not had it. And the game would have been exactly the same.
Yeah, that is some stuff that I'll agree on with some unnecessary exposition in regards to the magic system and what he goes over at the school. Some of it was, well, most of it, I'll say, yeah. It was more information than we needed. And yeah, I mean, I'm more likely to go into a game and go through the beginning stuff and the setup than you are. So once the game got underway, I enjoyed all the interactions. But it is another example of a game where the beginning's kind of slow, and that's an area where you really should focus on having things develop quickly and getting interest up when you're writing a story.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing worse than being told, oh yeah, well the end half of this game is really good. You just have to go through the first half and understand everything which is going on first, and that's really boring.
Well, I don't mean to imply that it was only like the second half that was exciting. Like, I didn't really like find the stuff after the school to be that terrible. I kind of got into that stuff as well once that got underway. But yeah, most of the stuff that happened at the school in like that first scene where you're there, I didn't really enjoy that scene at all, and I was trudging through that.
Great. So would you recommend this game?
Let me see. What's the price again? It was $12.99. Was it? Is that what I said? Something like that, or $11.99. I don't remember. I don't know. It's tough because I really like the story and everything in it. I would give it a pass on the story and the characters and everything. Recommending at a price point I normally don't do because we haven't really dealt with games that are commercial that often. So I don't know. I mean, it's not a whole lot. $12.99 or $11.99. So I would say give it a shot. Like if you can get past, like if you heard what we talked about and you think you get past the beginning, the character interactions I enjoyed quite a bit later on. They were quite amusing. And I did like the aspect of the different perspectives. I like the way they dealt with the themes of this game because it deals with like issues of poverty and you know, the class struggle. And I thought I was kind of worried going through it that it might kind of be a bit preachy, but it really didn't in the end. And it was more focused on the characters and them kind of coming together rather than like the class struggle and like, oh, the poor are so righteous. Like I was kind of worried it would go in that direction, but it really didn't towards the end of the game. So yeah, I like the way it dealt with that kind of story, and I do like that it's different from most of the other visual novels as well. Like this in Over the Hills and Far Away I enjoyed quite a bit because it's so much different from most of the other visual novels we played so far in regards to the story and the kind of setting that it has. So yeah, I would recommend it.
Alright, in that case, I will be apathetic about it and go, eh.
Well, since you haven't really played the whole thing, it's hard to tell anyway.
Yeah, if I don't like a game after an hour and a half, it's not going to get any better. Grumble, grumble. Should we end the show there and get onto our live Q&A for the people who are here?
Yes, for those that have stuck through this whole way.
Yes, exactly. Let's get on to, let's face it, the real show, right? And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'd know what it was like if you just showed up live. You showed up live, you get to ask us a question. That's right, you can ask us anything you want.
Yes, you can spice things up with your personal questions.
Yes, and we will answer anything at all. Absolutely anything. I'd say within reason, but I literally answer anything. I don't mind. But would you like to sign out so we can get the Q&A going?
All right. So for all those who stood around and sat through our main show, thank you for showing up. Once again, I've been Tryinmorning, and I've been doing this with my co-host, Tenarium.
Yes, indeed.
Words. Okay. The next part, as usual, will be very professionally done, and that'll go up on Chris's channel, whenever it is that we may do that.
In 2 weeks from now, of course.
Of course. So, we expect to see you all then, and until then, farewell.